Tuesday night. Chilly night. You cracked the can, and there was that little hiss, the lid peeling back, that soft metallic sigh. And then the pale, cloudy brine, and the beans sitting in it like they had been waiting a long time. You drained them. You rinsed them, maybe twice. And still, somewhere under the cumin, there was a dull note on the back of your tongue you could not name. A little flat, a little tinny. And you figured it was you. Old spices, hard water, a pan that needed scrubbing. It was not you. That taste is not the bean. It is the can. And the entire job of that label, every word printed on it, is to make sure you never connect the two. We tested canned beans from 10 stores. Walmart, Costco, Target, Kroger, Aldi, Sam's Club, Safeway, Publix, Trader Joe's, and Whole Foods. And when I say tested, I mean two things. We read every can in the aisle, because most of tonight's answers are printed on the back in plain English. And we pulled the lab reports, the ones where scientists did the thing the manufacturers refused to do. They scraped the lining out of the can and found out what it was actually made of. Here is the number that started this. In the largest independent test of its kind, 2 out of every 3 cans on American shelves were lined with a chemical the maker would not name, until researchers reverse-engineered nearly 200 of them and tested the linings themselves. 2 out of 3. Read that again. And the worst part is not in the beans. It is in the wall around them. And the part that will sting, the store you would trust most to protect you from all this, the clean one, the one you pay extra for, is the one that lands dead last tonight. Before we start, type the store where you buy your beans into the comments right now, just the store. By the end, you will know exactly what its can is hiding, and you will know it from the label, not from me. 4 terms will do all the work tonight, and 3 of them are warnings: drained weight, chelating agent, regrettable substitution. And 1 word, at the very end, that is the way out. Because this is the rule, the whole video turns on. The label is a story about the bean. The can is the part they never have to tell you. Counting down, worst offenders closest to the end. Number 7. Actually, 1 honest minute first, because that's how this channel works. Nothing in this video is going to make you sick tonight. A can of beans is food. Beans are one of the best things you can eat, full stop. Nobody's getting poisoned by dinner, and if canned beans are how your family gets fed on a Tuesday, keep buying them. This was never about scaring you out of the aisle. This is about a quieter question. You bought the bean. What did they ship it in? And why won't the label say? Every fact tonight comes off a published ingredient list, a nutrition panel, a federal standard, or a peer-reviewed lab report you can look up yourself. No leaks, no rumors. Just the part of the can nobody reads out loud. And 1 piece of history before the countdown, because the whole aisle sits on top of it. The can has done this before. For most of the last century, food cans were sealed with lead solder, actual lead, holding the seam together. People who lived on canned food got lead poisoning from it. The FDA didn't ban lead-soldered cans until 1995. So when I tell you the container is the story, understand that the container has a body count. It has always been the part they fix last and tell you about never. Number 7. Walmart. You expected cheap. It's great value. That's the deal. And honestly, there's no shame in it. But read where the cheap actually lives, because it isn't only in the bean. Pick up the can and find the net weight, 15 ounces. That's your first term, and it's the friendliest lie on the shelf, net weight. Net weight is everything inside, beans and brine together. Now drain that can. What's left, the actual beans, weighs closer to 9 ounces. The rest, 5, 6 ounces of it, is salted water called aquafaba, and you paid for it by the ounce. Now the term that protects you, drained weight. That's the number that matters, and it's the number they don't print. Under the federal standard, a can of beans can be as little as half beans by weight and still be perfectly legal. Half. So the next time a store sells you a 15-ounce can for 89 cents and the store next door sells one for $1.19, you're not comparing beans. You're comparing how much salt water each one floated them in. None of that is illegal. All of it is efficient. Water is free, and the picture on the front is doing the rest of the work. Walmart earns its spot at 7 for an almost respectable reason. It never promised you anything but cheap, and it delivered exactly that. You walked in guarded. but its own private label cans still came back BPH positive in that same national lab test. And that's the thing to hold on to as we climb. The floor of this list isn't the problem. The problem is every store above it charging more for the same wall while promising you something better. Number 6. Kroger. The saltiest number in the aisle hides in plain sight, so go find it. Flip a standard can of Kroger beans and read the sodium line, somewhere around 400 to 500 milligrams per serving. Now check how many servings are in the can. There are 3.5. Do that multiplication and 1 can of beans is carrying well over 1,000 milligrams of sodium. Close to half of what an adult is supposed to have in an entire day, sitting in a single can of what your brain files under healthy. Why to skip it? Why so much? Because salt is cheap, salt is flavor, and salt is what a mass-produced bean leans on when it can't lean on freshness. And this is the part that should bother you. Kroger already sells the fix. Sitting on the same shelf, most weeks, is Kroger's own no-salt added can. Same brand, same bean, a fraction of the sodium. The clean version exists. They make it. It's just not the one stacked at eye level, not the one on sale, not the one your hand lands on when the cart is full and the kids are loud. When a store sells you the problem and the solution side by side and lets the default do the choosing, that's not a supply issue. That's a decision. And it was made for you, at a desk, before you ever reach the aisle. And if salt is the thing they add loudly, the next store adds something quietly, something that only makes sense if the can is doing something it shouldn't. Number 5. Safeway. One ingredient on this label is the can confessing, and once you can read it, you'll see it everywhere. Turn a can of Safeway's signature select beans and run down the ingredient list. Past the beans, past the water, past the salt, you'll find 2 little names, calcium chloride and disodium EDTA. Meet your second term, chelating agent, because that's what disodium EDTA is. Here's what a chelating agent does. It grabs loose metal. It binds to metal ions floating in the food so they can't react, can't discolor the beans, can't throw off that flat, tinny taste. Now sit with the logic of that for 1 second. The manufacturer added a chemical whose specific job is to catch metal inside the can, because metal is coming off the wall of the can into your beans, and they'd rather you didn't taste it. The EDTA isn't the crime. The EDTA is the receipt. It's the label quietly admitting the can leaks and then paying a chemical to hide the evidence. The calcium chloride does its own quiet job. It's a firming agent, there to hold together beans that would otherwise turn to mush, propping up the texture the way the EDTA props up the color. And Safeway's parent, Albertsons, showed up in that same national lab test with private label cans lined in BPPA-based resin. So on this one, you've got the lining they won't name, and the ingredient that exists because of it, printed right there in the fine print. They just trusted that you'd never ask what a chelating agent was chelating. Now, everything below this point on the list is about what stores put in the can. From here up, it changes. From here up, the story isn't what they added. It's what they refuse to tell you. And it starts with the store you probably love the most. Number 4. Publix. Nobody would tell us what the lining was. That's the whole item, and it belongs to Publix because Publix is exactly the kind of store you trust enough to stop asking. The clean floors, the sub-sandwiches, the staff who know your name. A store you defend like family. So here's a fair question to bring to family. What is the inside of your can made of? When those researchers set out to test canned food, they hit a wall before they hit a lab. In their words, the manufacturers refused to tell them what chemicals were in their cans, so they had to reverse engineer them, scrape the linings out, and analyze the coatings themselves, because there was no other way to find out. Think about what that means. The one surface that touches your food for months, through heat, through processing, through a year on a shelf, is a trade secret. Not the recipe. The wall. And it's a trade secret at the warm neighborhood store, just like it's a trade secret at the discount chain, because Publix, like almost everyone, buys its cans from the same handful of converters who make them. Publix didn't do anything the others didn't. That's the point. The most beloved store on this list can tell you the name of the farmer on the front of the produce section and cannot tell you what's lining the can 4 aisles over. Warmth is not disclosure. And the most dangerous place to stop reading is right after the store you trust. Number 3. Target. The prettiest can in the aisle tested the same as the ugliest. Good and Gather might be the best-dressed bean in America. Soft matte label, tasteful little sprig of herb in the photo, a font that whispers farmer's market and wellness in Sunday morning. It looks like health. It's designed, down to the pixel, to look like the answer. Then read what's under the design. Target's private label cans turned up in that national test lined with the same BPA-based epoxy as the $2 brands. The exact resin the pretty label is built to make you forget. Give Target its half point. The beans themselves are fine. The sodium is often reasonable, and the company has made real noise about moving away from BPA. But notice what your eye already did in the aisle. The matte label whispered clean, and your brain marked the box before your hand even moved. That's the entire business model of a premium store brand. Spend the money on the outside of the can, source the inside like everybody else, and let the design do the vouching. Design is a promise about taste. It was never a promise about the lining. The can got a designer. The wall never met one. And if a beautiful label can bend your judgment at Target, the last two stores on this list built their whole reputation out of that exact trick and charged you trust for it. Number 2, Trader Joe's, the store that reads the label for you. That's the promise, isn't it? You don't have to check things here. We already checked. The curated shelf, the crew in Hawaiian shirts, the sense that someone with taste walked the aisle before you did and threw out the junk. That promise is precisely why Trader Joe's lands this high, because Trader Joe's private label cans showed up in that national lab test lined with BPA-based resin, right alongside the discount labels their shoppers think they've escaped. And here's your third term, the one that turns BPA-free from a comfort into a warning: regrettable substitution. When public pressure hit, a lot of brands dropped BPA and stamped BPA-free on the can like a trophy. But that phrase, legally, means one thing and one thing only: that no BPA was intentionally added. It says nothing about what took its place. And what took its place, in can after can, was BPS, or BPF, or a PVC-based coating. Researchers who tested those replacements found they mimic estrogen just like BPA does, some of them more strongly than BPA, and that BPS lingers in the body longer and at higher levels than the chemical it replaced. One scientist put it perfectly: the replacement is the same shape as the original, just with bigger ears. BPA-free isn't a finish line. It's a magician's hand, pointing at what they took out so you don't ask what they put in. Nobody at Trader Joe's lied to you. The can is accurate to the letter. They just know their shoppers walk in pre-sold, that the store's whole reputation reads the label so you don't. And at the store built entirely on doing the reading for you, almost nobody turns the can over. Now the last one. And this is the one that stings, because it's the store you'd have bet the farm on. Number 1, Whole Foods, the one aisle where the health store loses. Whole Foods is the temple, the place you go specifically to not have to worry, the clean store, the one whose whole identity is that someone already screened this for you. And to their credit, on paper, they wrote the best rule in the business. When that 2016 report came out, Whole Foods had the strongest stated policy of any retailer surveyed. Their buyers weren't supposed to accept new canned goods with BPA in the lining. They even gave an award, years earlier, to the one small company that had gone fully BPA-free. They knew, better than anyone, they knew. And their own 365 private label cans still came back on the wrong side of that same test, lined with the same BPA-based resin as everybody else. That's the betrayal, and it's why the most trusted store sits at number 1, not because Whole Foods is the worst offender. It isn't, but because it wrote a policy proving it understood exactly what was wrong and shipped the can anyway. The policy was real, so was the lining. And the shopper paying the most, at the store trusting the most, turned the can over the least. That's what separates number 1 from number 7. Walmart never asked for your faith. You walked in guarded, and the cheap can met your low expectations. Whole Foods built an entire brand to lower that guard, to convince you the checking was finished before you arrived. Every bit of that is reassuring. Every bit of it is also a lining you can't see, on a can nobody had to describe, sold under the one name in America you trusted not to make you look. Trust is the thickest coating in this aisle, and it's the only one that isn't listed on the label. So before we go to the machine behind all this, tally what you just walked through. One store sold you water by the ounce. One buried a day's worth of salt in a single can. One added a chemical to catch the metal leaking off its own wall. And the 4 most trusted names on the list: the warm one, the pretty one, the curated one, and the clean one. All shipped the exact same secret lining as the cheapest can in the test, while charging you, in dollars or in faith, for the feeling that they hadn't. 10 stores, 1 can. Nobody colluded. Nobody had to. Pause the countdown, because this isn't 10 stores making the same mistake. It's one machine, and it's older than any of them. Here's the machine. Go back to that lead solder. The poison in the seam, the thing that put lead in a century of dinners before the FDA finally banned it in 1995. The industry didn't ban it out of conscience. They'd mostly quit years earlier because a better coating came along. And that better coating, the one that replaced the lead, was epoxy resin, made, in most cases, from BPA. That is the whole pattern of the can in a single move. A cheap new lining shows up, solves the last poison everyone finally noticed, and quietly introduces the next one nobody's looking at yet. Lead, then BPA. And now, as BPA gets banned, BPS and BPF and PVC, the same move, a third time, running right now. And the reason it keeps working is economic, not accidental. Those competing store brands you just watched fail? When researchers reverse-engineered the linings, they kept finding the same coatings across supposedly rival cans. Because the stores don't make the cans. A handful of converters do, and they sell the same wall to everyone. The lining costs pennies. Disclosing it would mean giving up a trade secret. So the math is simple, and it lands on the same answer at every desk in the country. Use the cheap coating, refuse to name it, and let the label talk about the bean. You can't be sued over a secret you were never required to tell. That's why nobody's coming to fix it here. Because look at where it already is fixed. France banned BPA in all food packaging in 2015. The European Union has now banned it outright. The regulation takes full effect in July of 2026. And in 2023, Europe's Food Safety Authority looked at the newest science and cut the amount of BPA it considers tolerable in a day by 20,000 times. 20,000. Meanwhile, the FDA still rates it safe at current levels. So the exact same can, same lining, same chemistry, is illegal in Paris and stacked to the ceiling in your aisle. Safe, it turns out, isn't a fact about the can. It's a fact about which country you're standing in. And when someone did try to make you aware of it, watch what the industry did. California listed BPA as a reproductive toxin in 2015 and moved to require a warning. Rather than print that warning on each can, the industry lobbied for, and got, permission to post one generic sign at the store, near the entrance, covering everything. So no individual can ever has to confess. The warning exists. It's just been arranged so that it never points at anything you're actually holding. Now, before I show you the way out, let me kill the tip you've heard 100 times. The one that sounds like a solution and quietly makes things worse. Just drain and rinse them. You'll be fine. The honest part, for salt, that's true. Draining and rinsing a can of beans washes away roughly 40% of the sodium. Genuinely useful, do it? But for the lining, it does nothing. The chemicals from the coating don't sit politely on the surface waiting to be rinsed off. They migrate into the bean itself, over months on the shelf, under the heat of processing. They're in the food, not on it. So the rinse handles the one problem printed on the nutrition panel and leaves the one problem nobody printed completely untouched. That's what makes the tip dangerous. It's half-true, and half-true advice is the kind that spreads. Because it lets everyone feel handled while the actual thing walks right past. So what actually passes? And here's the twist this whole aisle has been building toward. The winner isn't a store. It isn't even really a brand. Because the store was never the problem. The can was. So the 3 things that pass are 3 ways out of the can. The first is the one brand that proves it was always possible. Back in 1999, while every canner in America was insisting the lining was a trade secret they couldn't discuss, one small company, Eden Foods, simply refused to accept that. They badgered their can supplier until they got an answer, then paid 14% more, per can, for a lining made without BPA, an old-fashioned coating called oleoresin. That's your 4th term, and the only hopeful one. A plant-based resin used back in the 1960s, before the industry ever reached for epoxy. Eden's beans carry no BPA, no BPS, no EDTA, no calcium chloride. The ingredient list is beans, water, maybe a little seaweed, and that's the whole story. Their can maker has said Eden is the only U.S. food company using that lining. One company, for 25 years, has been quietly proving that the secret everyone else guards was never a secret at all. It was a choice, and it cost 14%. The second way out is glass. Beans sold in glass jars have no lining to reverse engineer, no coating between the food and you. You can literally see what you're buying. They cost more, they're heavier, and they're harder to find. And they're the only container in this whole video with nothing to hide, because there's nothing there to hide it in. And the third way out is the one that's almost embarrassing. The one sitting 2 shelves over from everything you just watched fail. Dried beans. The 89-cent bag. No can, so no lining. No brine, so no drained weight trick. You're paying for beans and only beans. No ETA, because there's no metal to chelate. No added sodium at all. You decide every grain that goes in. A pot, some water, an afternoon you're mostly not even in the kitchen for, and you've made better beans than anything in this test for a third of the price. The discount bag didn't outmarket anybody. It just had nothing to lie about. That's the win. The winner in this aisle isn't a store you drive to or a brand you trust. It's the shopper who read the one line the label was built to hide and then stepped 1 shelf sideways. 3 tests before you go. No lab, 30 seconds in the aisle. Test 1, the ingredient read. Turn the can and look for 2 names, calcium chloride and disodium ETA. If the ETA is there, the maker added a chemical to catch the metal coming off the wall, which tells you the wall is coming off. It doesn't make the beans unsafe. It tells you what the can is doing when you're not looking. Test 2, the weight read. Find net weight, 15 ounces, and then mentally cut it by 1/3, because that's the brine. Compare beans by their drained weight and their price per real ounce, not by the number the front of the can wants you to use. Test 3, the lining question. Look for any sentence that tells you what the lining is, not PF-free, which only tells you what it isn't. If the can names its coating, that's a company that decided to tell you. If it's silent, that's your answer too. And fair warning on this one, silence isn't proof there's BPA in there. But disclosure is the only thing that can ever prove there isn't, and exactly one brand in this video bothered. 4 quick myths so nobody sells them back to you. Myth 1, BPA means safe. It means BPA wasn't added on purpose. The replacement, BPS, BPF, BVC, can be just as estrogenic, and one of them stays in your body longer. Free of the word isn't free of the problem. Myth 2, rinsing fixes it. Rinsing fixes the salt. The lining chemical is already inside the bean, and no amount of tap water reaches it. Myth 3, organic means the can is clean. Organic describes how the bean was farmed. It says nothing about the wall it was sealed inside. You can pack a certified organic bean in a BPA-aligned can all day long, and plenty of brands do. Myth 4, the FDA says it's fine, so it's fine. The same can is banned in France and across the European Union, and Europe just cut its safe daily limit 20,000-fold. Fine is a border you happen to be standing on the wrong side of. Here's the whole video in 5 seconds at the shelf. Turn the can. Read the ingredients for ETA. Cut the net weight by 1/3 in your head. Look for the lining, named or hidden. And when in doubt, remember the rule. The label is a story about the bean, and the can is the part they never had to tell you. So, drained weight, chelating agent, regrettable substitution, and oleoresin. 3 warnings and 1 way out. 4 terms, and a bean aisle that used to be a wall of identical cans is now a 30-second read. 7 stores failed for the same reason, wearing 7 different labels. The 3 things that passed did it by doing something almost too simple to sell. They stopped hiding the can, or they got rid of it entirely. Your turn. Tell me the store you buy your beans from. I read every single comment, and the one named most becomes the can we open next. And send this to the person in your life who buys the beautiful can from the clean store and swears it's the healthy one. Tell them to turn it over, not to read the front. The front was always for them. The back. The fine print, the ingredients, the silence where the lining should be. That part was written for whoever bothered to look. They'll argue. Then they'll turn the can over. Then they'll go quiet for a second, and you'll know exactly which second, because it happened to you tonight, somewhere around that little metallic hiss. See you at the next one.